It began like any other sentencing day in Clark County District Court, Las Vegas. Judge Mary Kay Holthus, a 62-year-old seasoned judge known for her firm but measured rulings, had a busy docket. The air inside the courtroom carried the usual mix of routine and tension, the kind that comes when people wait to hear how the law will reshape their lives. But no one inside that courtroom could have anticipated the chaos that would unfold, or how the sanctity of the bench itself would be shattered in seconds. The man at the center of it all was 30-year-old Deobra Redden. By then, Redden was no stranger to law enforcement. His rap sheet stretched across years, filled with arrests, felonies, and misdemeanors, 3 felonies, 9 misdemeanors, and a recent prison term in 2021 for domestic battery. To those who knew his history, he was unpredictable, volatile, a man whose temper often spilled into violence. But on this day, January 3rd, 2024, he was there to face sentencing for an earlier baseball bat attack he had committed the previous April. The charge was serious, attempted battery with substantial bodily harm. He had pleaded, even begged the court for probation. He told Judge Holthus he was trying to do the right thing, that he wasn't a rebellious person. His words painted a picture of a man seeking redemption, a man who wanted another chance at life outside prison walls. But his record told another story. It told of repeated violence, of failed second chances, of cycles that never seemed to end. Judge Holthus listened, weighed, and ultimately decided probation wasn't an option. The moment she denied it, the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted. Witnesses recall how quickly it happened, how there was barely a heartbeat between her ruling and Redden's eruption. In one terrifying instant, he launched himself over the defense table, clearing the barrier between himself and the authority figure who held his fate. He vaulted the judge's bench in what officials later described as Supermaned over, crashing into Holthus and knocking her backward out of her chair. The scene dissolved into chaos. Screams filled the room. The American flag that stood proudly behind the bench toppled in the melee, falling across the judge and her attacker. Clerks scrambled, officers rushed, but Redden was big, strong, and furious. Holthus' head slammed against the wall. He yanked at her hair. The sheer shock of the assault froze the courtroom for seconds that felt like eternity. Clerk Michael Lasso threw himself into the fight, trying to pull Redden off the judge. Marshals joined, struggling to restrain him. One marshal ended up with a dislocated shoulder and a deep gash across his forehead that would require 25 stitches. Lasso's hands were cut. Others in the room shouted, grabbed, punched, until finally, after several minutes of violent struggle, Redden was subdued and dragged away. Judge Holthus was shaken, injured, but alive. She went to the hospital, treated for pain and bruises, and was released later that day. The following morning, despite soreness, she returned to work. Her resilience became a story of its own. A judge attacked in her own courtroom, refusing to let fear dictate her duties. But for the public, it was the video that seared itself into memory. A grainy but chilling recording of Redden leaping across the courtroom, the judge tumbling, the flag crashing down, the frantic scuffle. Shared online, the footage went viral within hours, sparking outrage, disbelief, and deep questions about how such an attack could happen in a courtroom. Redden, already awaiting sentencing, now faced an avalanche of new charges. 6 new felonies and 7 misdemeanors were added: battery on a protected person, extortion, coercion with force, and more. Prosecutors painted him as a man whose violence had defined his adult life. District Attorney Steve Wolfson would later say bluntly, "He's been violent his entire adult life." Redden himself gave different explanations. In the aftermath, he told officers he had been having a bad day. He also claimed that he wanted to kill Judge Holthus, that she was evil, that she had it out for him. His anger, simmering beneath the surface, had boiled over in the most dangerous place possible.
Morning, Judge.
Good morning. All right, this is on for the continuation of Mr. Redden's sentencing. When we were last here, arguments were concluded and the court had begun to pronounce sentence when an incident occurred. An incident initiated by Mr. Redden, preventing the court from completing sentencing. That is the sole purpose for today's hearing. Any other issues that may arise from the events that occurred last Wednesday will be handled at a future date.
The very room where justice is supposed to stand untouchable. On January 8, 2024, less than a week after the attack, Redden appeared once more before Judge Holthus. This time, the image was unforgettable in a very different way. Gone was the unshackled, unrestrained defendant who had vaulted the bench. In his place was a man surrounded by marshals, restrained in shackles, his hands covered in orange mitts, and his face obscured by a spit hood. The image called to mind Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs, a figure so dangerous that the court dared not risk another outburst. The courtroom was silent as Redden entered. He did not speak. Holthus, calm but firm, proceeded with the sentencing for the baseball bat assault. 19 to 48 months in prison. She made it clear that her ruling stood as it had before, unaltered by the attack. The courtroom assault would be dealt with separately, by another judge, in another case. That decision was symbolic. It was a statement that justice would not be intimidated, not swayed, not corrupted by violence. Holthus had been the victim, but she refused to let that fact change her role as arbiter of law. In many ways, her refusal to alter course was as important as the sentence itself. But the questions lingered. How could a defendant get close enough to assault a judge in open court? Why wasn't Redden in restraints at the moment of sentencing? Reports later revealed that marshals had been preparing to handcuff him when he suddenly erupted. Panic alarms were pressed, but some officers were sent to the wrong courtroom in the confusion. By the time help arrived, the assault had already caused serious injuries. For court officials, the incident became a wake-up call. Courtrooms are meant to symbolize order, authority, and control. Yet this case revealed just how vulnerable those spaces can be. If a determined defendant can vault a bench and attack a judge, what does that mean for the safety of court staff, clerks, attorneys, and victims who walk into those rooms expecting protection? The Redden case also sparked debates about the balance between fairness and safety. Shackling every defendant might seem extreme, but what about cases like this, where the risk is clear? Should courts take greater precautions with repeat offenders? Or would doing so erode the presumption of innocence that defendants are meant to have until convicted? For many, the image of Redden in his spit hood symbolized the tension between those two ideas. He was restrained, yes, but also dehumanized, transformed into something almost inhuman in appearance. It sent a powerful message, but also raised uncomfortable questions. Is this justice, or is it a spectacle? What is certain is that Redden now faces a mountain of legal consequences. In addition to the 19 to 48 months for his baseball bat assault, he faces multiple new felonies for the attack on Judge Holthus. Convictions could add decades to his sentence. Prosecutors, who already viewed him as habitually violent, are unlikely to show leniency. Yet even beyond the punishment, the case has left a lasting scar. For Judge Holthus, the experience was personal. She was assaulted in her courtroom, her authority challenged, her safety endangered. And yet she returned to the bench almost immediately, refusing to let the attack silence her. For the justice system, it was a reminder that courtrooms are not immune to the violence of the world outside. The attack also highlighted the strain between defendants and judges in cases of sentencing. To the public, judges are impartial figures delivering justice. But to a defendant staring at years behind bars, that judge can become the embodiment of the system they feel has failed them. For Redden, that rage boiled over in a way few could have predicted. But once it happened, it exposed a vulnerability few had considered. In the weeks and months after the attack, security reviews were launched. Questions about panic alarms, courtroom layouts, and protocols for high-risk defendants became urgent topics. Judges and clerks across the country watched the video, many with a chilling realization: it could happen anywhere. And so, the story of Deobra Redden is not just about one man's violent outburst. It is about the fragility of order in spaces designed to uphold it. It is about the limits of patience, the unpredictability of anger, and the risks faced by those who dedicate their lives to administering justice. Redden will serve his time. He will stand before another judge for the charges stemming from his attack. He may spend years, perhaps decades, behind bars. but the legacy of his actions stretches far beyond his personal fate. His attack forced the public to see courtrooms not as untouchable sanctuaries of law, but as vulnerable human spaces, where even the highest authority can be thrown to the ground in a moment of unchecked rage. And as for Judge Mary Kay Holthus, her response remains a testament to resilience. She was bruised, injured, her authority physically violated. Yet she stood firm, refusing to alter her ruling, refusing to let violence dictate justice. Her decision sent a message far beyond that courtroom. The law will not bow to intimidation. Even when assaulted, even when bloodied, justice must proceed. The attack of Deobra Redden shocked America not only for its violence, but for what it revealed about the fragility of our institutions. A man's rage, a judge's resolve, a courtroom turned battleground. It was all captured in a few chaotic minutes, but its impact will be remembered for years.